Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning maybe as well. So welcome to the session. So coming. It's great to see you again. Hi, Teacher Felix. Glad to see you. Let me know if you can hear me and see my slides, okay? Hi, Teacher Ming from Myanmar. Great to see you. Nice to see you all here. Hi, Phone. And we have teachers from Thailand, Vietnam. Yeah, great to see you again. So we have come to the day 3 of this webinar series, right? Hope you have watched the previous 2 sessions. We have talked about error correction and teaching reading in the digital classroom in the previous 2 sessions. If you are interested, you can go back to review the webinar as well. Hello. So welcome to Macmillan Education Advancing Learning Professional Development Program. We are hosting this Macmillan Education Asia 2022 seasonal opening webinar today. So great. Warm welcome to everybody. Yes. And as I have mentioned, this is the opening like a webinar series for our 2022 professional development program, and we're going to kick off with this opening webinar series to focus on teachers' professional development. So I would like to give you a very quick introduction about this program that we're going to launch in Asia this year. We wish to support teachers to develop yourself and develop your professional skills in English language teaching all through the year. That's why we have put all the teacher training webinars, ELT time show, and some of the other teaching resources and events together into this learning journey. So we are inviting you to join us and develop yourself together with Macmillan Education in 2022. We're going to have loads of activities, webinars coming up soon. And we're going to focus on the 6 pillars of Macmillan Education academic program. So stay tuned. We're going to launch more professional development events with you to join. And as the opening webinar series, we have covered the 3 sessions this time with you, and today we're coming to the 3rd webinar. We're going to focus on listening in the digital classroom today. So if you're interested, you can go back to review all the 3 sessions. You will receive a recording link later after the webinar. And I would also like to let you know about how you will receive your certificate. No worries about your hand raising. No worries. The certificate is going to arrive with an email by Macmillan Education Asia together with the recording link, and you will receive it in a few days, 1 or 2 or 3 days later after this session. So please do check out your email and also the spam box. Sometimes it will go there as well. And also, if you have any questions, if you are interested in participating into the professional development program with Macmillan Education, you can follow us on Facebook and WeChat. You can scan these QR codes to follow us on these 2 social media channels. We will be sharing the latest webinars, the latest events with you on these 2 channels. So stay tuned. Follow us on these 2 platforms. And today, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the 2 speakers. You know who they are, right? So let's welcome John and Dell to the stage.
Hi, Super.
Hi, John. Hi, Dell. So say hello.
Hi, Dell.
Have a quick maybe greeting to all the teachers from Asia.
Absolutely, a warm welcome to all of you from all over the region, which is great to see. Brilliant. Thanks for coming back. Some familiar names there as well, and look forward to collaborating and working through the next 15 minutes. Lots of practical ideas coming your way from myself and Del there in Bangkok, Thailand. Del.
Yes, yeah, just outside. Yeah, Nonthaburi to be precise. Yeah, and where are you, John?
I'm in Shanghai, China. Yeah.
Right.
So all well.
Yeah, we've got people from everywhere today, John. Even Morocco, I think, is the furthest away.
Oh,
but,
I'd love to go to Morocco.
It's great to see, yeah. And I just want to remind everybody that we're going to have a short Q&A at the end of the session. So do submit your questions in the Q&A session, and I will come back with that later. Okay, so I'll see you later. Bye.
Cheers, Super.
Bye, Super.
Cheers.
Great. All right, so today's all about listening. So Del talked you through reading on Tuesday. So we're going to move across to a different skill, that of listening, one that is been very, very important to my language learning life in the last 7 years here in China. Crucial to the early years, I think, of language learning, to immerse yourself, hear the language, understand how it works through hearing it first. Sometimes you need that period, don't you, before you can actually start producing the language. I've mentioned digital classroom here in the title as well. It doesn't mean that you have to be teaching online using digital tools, for example, to teach listening. This could be using digital tools in the face-to-face classroom as well. So we'll have a few little ideas for face-to-face and online teaching. Good to go, Del?
Looking forward to it.
Good. All right. So I hope you're on your toes, Del, because I got a little challenge for you and the teachers to start. Oops, hang on. Let me just bring my screen back up. So a little challenge to begin with. Instead of giving you the objectives for today's training, or maybe your class, right? If you're a teacher, I'm going to dictate our 4 objectives. So I want you to listen to the 4 objectives, okay? Right. And afterwards, I'm going to ask you what you remember about the objectives.
Okay. Can I write them down?
For this one, this activity, no. We'll be doing activities later where you can. This one, no. Yeah. So how many objectives?
4.
4 objectives. Are you allowed to write?
No.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Number 1. Here we go. So understand the challenges with listening. Number 2, understand the difference between teaching and practicing listening. Number 3, understand and use stages for a listening task. And number 4, be able to apply new activities to your classroom. Right. So maybe the teachers in the chat box, and Del, maybe I'll give you 10 seconds in a minute. What can you guys remember? What were our objectives, our 4 objectives? Who can remember what? Let's see what the teachers can remember first, shall we?
My internet went down, so yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I missed it.
So we've got challenges.
Yeah, challenges.
Yep, all right.
Yeah.
What else do you remember, Del? Can you give me maybe the second one? Do you remember?
Something to do with the difference.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Toto.
Go.
Understand the difference. Okay, all right.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah.
Number 3?
Number 3, I remember, is about the stages. Something about the stages of a listening lesson.
Yeah. And 4?
And 4 was all about the practical activities.
Okay, pretty good, pretty good.
That
Okay,
it? Am I good? Yeah.
not bad, not bad. So here's our objectives today.
Hmm.
So yeah, challenges, that difference between teaching and practicing, quite an important difference. Stages, I'll give you a model for the stages, step-by-step stages for doing like a listening task. And then lots of activities that you guys can take away to your online or face-to-face classroom, all right? As we go through, I'll be giving you lots of tips as well. I think we've got eight tips as well. And the first one there, like I did, yeah, look for opportunities to integrate listening activities at different points in the lesson. You don't have to wait for the listening activity in the book, right? You can, for example, dictate your lesson objectives. You can dictate instructions, get them to maybe listen and then write those instructions down, tell their partner. You could do a summary of the class at the end of the class, or at the start of a new class. You could do like a listening activity where you summarize what you did in the last class, and they listen and then maybe write that down. If you're teaching online, you might record your voice talking about what you did in the lesson, and then send that to your students as a little listening activity, something like that, or different opportunities throughout your teaching. Okay.
Yeah, I like that dictation activity because and especially because you said we're not allowed to write it down. So obviously it's like an active listening and there's a purpose to it. But what was really interesting was that, I don't know, I added the word practical to the activities. So I actually formed other collocations, more language came out. So it's a nice way of discovering emergent language. And I was looking in the chat as well, what people had written, other things that they came out with. So stages in a listening lesson. And so it's kind of nice to see other words and other language come out of it. Just a throwaway.
Yeah, cheers. Now, we're going to move on to the challenges of listening. Some really important things to think about. It's really important to understand what challenges, issues your students might have, and then you can maybe adapt or use listening activities to kind of solve some of those challenges or problem areas. Before we do that, a few things to think about or remember or not to forget when doing listening. I'm going to turn this into a little listening activity for the teachers and you, Del, as well. So this one is like an anticipation activity.
Oh.
So I'm going to read part of a sentence and I'm going to stop, and then you're going to tell me what word you think is going to come next, or what words will come next, all right, to complete that sentence. Okay, think you can do that?
Easy.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for example, if I said to you, to cope with difficulties of listening in real time, listeners use blah blah blah. What do you think comes next? And again, teachers in the chat box, what comes next? To cope with difficulties of listening in real time, listeners use blah blah blah. So Pretty says context. Predicting background knowledge. What are you thinking, Del?
I'm thinking their ears. No, I'm thinking of things like skill strategies, maybe.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Hey.
What I was getting at was strategies there,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. Okay.
Nice
So,
answer in the chat though. Background knowledge, prediction. Yeah. Context. Pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually understanding the context itself, it would probably be a strategy as well. So there are a lot of things that come with strategies, and we'll look at different strategies as we go through. Next one, in case of interaction, listeners should blah 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 blah. So listening is not always like one way, is it? You're not always kind of there's always other stuff going on.
Gives that one again. Say that one again, please.
In case of interaction, okay, all right, listeners should beep. You might be listening, but also there may be some interaction coming, mightn't there? So what should you do? Tricky one.
Good. I think, yeah, be clear, interact, take turns. Yeah, I've kind of got, maybe be ready to answer something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I think also maybe you're not only listening, maybe that's part of the challenge, not only listening, but you're maybe also starting to prepare an appropriate response, or what kind of question you're going to follow up with, aren't you, in your head, which often makes it a little bit different. But lots of things are going on up here, aren't they? Okay. And finally, well, actually, that is linked to this one. You know, it's simultaneous. There's things going on which are often interrelated. That's why maybe listening and speaking, communication, lots of simultaneous things going on, aren't there?
Yeah.
And finally, then, this is why listening is beep. This is why listening is beep. Very tricky. Important. Challenging, hard.
Yeah, I think I've seen the answer that I would have given. Moncon wrote active. I think that's what I would probably write as well.
Well, you wouldn't be wrong, would you? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, active skill. But often in the classroom, would you go on? But often in the classroom, would you say that the listening activities are active or passive?
Often they're passive. Yeah, they practice the listening skills, right? So they're kind of a lot of comprehension.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, they're quite passive. And I think there was a really good quote from Guy, or a phrase. He said, "Listen to hear, not listen to reply," which is quite an interesting kind of way of looking at listening.
Okay. Yeah, obviously listening and hearing is quite different, isn't it, as well? And but yeah, well, lots of things to consider, and we'll have a look at how we can make listening more active as well. Okay. I'm just gonna list some of these challenges, Del, here, other challenges, and for teachers as well. Just take a few seconds just to read through those, and some of them you might think are more important, or which ones are more relevant to your students. And yeah, let me know, Del, what jumps out at you from these challenges with your experience as well.
I think they're all really, they're all obviously important that we recognize what these challenges are and then try and help students with them. And I think one of the issues with listening as well, I mean, this is in a first language, whether it be regardless of your first language, is and you've talked about active listening, is I don't know if you've ever had conversations before with people who are just listening so that they can then give their answer, but they're not actually listening to what you're actually talking about. And that's a skill I think we have to learn, of being a good listener, and not just a passive or active listener. It can be quite frustrating, can't it, when you're trying to tell somebody something and they're just itching to say something, and not listening to actually what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Other challenge I find here in China was that students wanted to know or try to translate every single word, basically. So it's a case of developing the strategies and showing them the importance of strategies. You don't have time to get to know every word, do you? And this one, redundancy, is a really crucial one. It's understanding, what information is important. So a lot of words, a lot of sentences may not be important to getting the actual gist or what they're getting at. You may just need one or two key words to really get that. And it's a matter of filtering, isn't it? What's important and what's not.
Yeah, I often think about, I've just had a thought as well about, all those things, that what's important, what's not. that's it. How do you teach that? That's the thing. How do you go about helping students to recognize that? I think that's a really key element of it.
Yeah.
I think, and we're thinking about another challenge, I think, is okay, I'm just seeing if it's there. Yeah, maybe accents, colloquialisms, that kind of thing. Often we prepare students maybe to go and study abroad. So they do the IELTS exam and they get 6.5 and they go, right, great, I'm ready to go now. They go and study abroad and they get into a university and they're like, I can't understand a single thing anybody's saying, because the listening that they hear in the day-to-day is completely different to an IELTS exam. Yeah. Interesting.
Exactly. And just as a wrap up then on the challenges, yeah, Chris Nally has she says, this is my students in terms of trying to translate every word. She said, it sounds like my students, they just listen just to answer and end up being wrong. So what's really important, and what we'll try and get at today, is really working on the process of listening, not the end product, and find out what's going on up here in their process to help them, get the right answer in the future. But concentrating more on that process, not so much on the product at the start. Okay, that will come a little bit later. And second tip linked to that is, not just kind of practicing listening and just forever getting the wrong answer. At some point, we actually have to try and teach it as well, in terms of the strategies to help them understand what's going on up here, help them get the right kind of strategies and good kind of listening habits. And this table kind of summarizes the difference between teaching listening and kind of practicing it. You may do a combination of both throughout a course, but I would really encourage you to think about that teaching side a little bit more. Not just comprehension questions, but developing those skills, strategies with the students. Not always about getting the correct answer right. And anything there, Dale, that you want to pick up on in terms of the importance of teaching?
Well, the teaching at the last thing that you wrote, diagnose the strengths and weaknesses and monitor. Obviously, that's a key area, and students are going to have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's our job to be able to help with that differentiation in the classroom. So yeah, but I would agree with you. I mean, it's similar to like the reading task that I did the other day, where if you're just checking comprehension, sometimes they can answer the questions without actually being able to understand what they've just listened to or read. So we need to teach those skills in order for them to be able to develop. Okay,
we'll have a look then at how we can do that in this session. And as I mentioned, we're never quite sure with listening and the processes going on up here. We don't know. We can't jump inside their heads and know what's taking place. So we need to keep that kind of communication, especially with feedback as well. Getting feedback on their strategies. Did their strategies work? What are your strengths and weaknesses? How can we improve that and design activities to try and understand what's going up and help them improve their processes? And one way we can do that is when we're using our audios in our listening texts in coursebook. It's really trying to exploit those for different strategies and skills, not only just listening once and then moving on. Using that audio text for maybe a variety of different types of activity, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 types of activities for the same audio text. And Del, we're going to have a look at a little task cycle, and I'm going to show you this cycle for a young learner activity, and then also for a teenage or young adult type activity as well. So we would start with a lead-in. Okay, we would have a pre-task before listening to the audio, and we'll discuss some ideas for that. We would then set the task. Obviously, very important to set the task before doing the task, right? You would play the audio, This is quite an old model, because on the model I had, it said play cassette.
Wow.
That's quite a long time ago, that, I'd say, yeah. So you play the audio, whether you're online or using CDs, or you download the MP3, whatever you're using. Or maybe the teacher may be the audio, right? You may be dictating audio.
Why not?
Yeah. And super important, feedback. After you play, you get some feedback on the task. How well did they do? Did they complete it? If not, maybe you need to play the audio again. And you gave me this idea, Del, about additional support. So maybe before playing the audio again, do they need a little bit of scaffolding or more vocabulary support, for example? Just them, right?
Yeah, that's really important. I've seen that before when I've observed teachers. They've done a listening activity. Students haven't got it. They haven't understood what they listened to. So the teachers play it again, and you're like, well, they couldn't do it the first time. If you just keep playing it and playing it again, they're just going to get more frustrated. Yeah. That's when that additional support comes in.
Okay. If they do complete the task, then you can obviously go around again. So using the same audio, but with a different task. And this, maybe you can increase the challenge of the task the second time, okay? And maybe you can go around 2 or 3 times to really get the most out of that text before finally finishing, all right? So we're going to have a look at this task cycle in the context of some young learner activity or task types. Here are some common classic type young learner listening type tasks, right? That we're all quite used to. And I'm going to have a look at one called listen and number. Okay, and we're going to use that task cycle, and I'm going to put forward a few activities, hopefully with some online and some face-to-face options. Feel free to jump in, Del, at any point. If you have any questions or you want to add your own activities, that will be most welcome and most helpful.
Okay.
So round 1, so the first time we go round, we've got a lead-in. So for the lead-in, so this activity here I've taken from the Story Central Plus course book. And this one is about busy lives and about occupations, isn't it? Occupations and jobs. So what I thought here is a lead-in. I would print out, if you're face-to-face, I would put some of these pictures around the classroom for students to see. They could even sort of walk around and familiarize themselves with the pictures. Maybe with a partner, they can say which ones they know already or predict what they might be, for example. You could also do a little listen and respond. So a student or 2 students or 1 from each group stands in the center of the classroom, and you give them instruction, for example, hop to the police officer, and they have to hop to the police officer, or jump to the chef, just to kind of test their knowledge, see what they know already, maybe as a little kind of test for the students. Okay. Obviously, if you were teaching online, you could bring up some of those pictures on your PowerPoint or other platform you were using, for example, and sort of test maybe what knowledge they have already. Okay. As a pre-task, this course actually comes with a little vocabulary video, which I'll share you at the moment. Or you could do it as a teacher, but you could read out each of the occupations, read out each of the jobs, and develop an action for each of those. And the students would listen and copy your action. Okay, so chef, you may be chopping up the food, for example. The fireman or firewoman, maybe with the hose putting out the fire, and you could encourage students to develop their own actions.
Yeah, some nice TPR activities there, aren't there? Some very good jobs.
Yeah, and again, that's an example of making listening active, isn't it? As well, they're actually doing they're doing something as a result of the listening. Okay. And in terms of the task, setting the task, it would be a who do you hear activity. So here you could even give them little, in each group, these pictures of the jobs. For example, on each picture of each job they have in their group, and you can read out the jobs in an order or listen to the audio. And as they hear a job, they hold up the card for that job, for example. Or they listen and point to it. If it's still around the classroom, they listen and point, or they listen and point in their book, for example, or listen and do the action for the correct job, okay? And if you want, if you're dictating that as a teacher maybe as well, you could challenge them and increase the speed a little bit as well, just to make it a little bit more
Nice, yeah,
fun, more challenging, for example, okay? Once you've done that, yeah, think about just getting some feedback, or you can observe them as they're doing that. Get some feedback how well they did. If some of them are struggling, you may want to repeat that task again in a slightly different form. So for example, if you did listen and hold up the picture, you could do like a listen and point this time, or listen and action, but you might want to repeat it at a more basic level if anybody struggled, or lots of them struggled. But get some feedback, observe them as you do that, okay?
cool.
All right, and just to note, yeah, those videos, so this course, Story Central, comes with these American Sign Language videos. So you can see these actors, they say the word and then do the action for those jobs, which the students can then copy. I know you've had some experience with those videos, Del, as well.
Yeah, I love those videos. Kind of give students another way of looking at the world as well.
Yeah,
Not so much
yeah.
vocabulary.
Okay. So once you've gone round once, now we can go around a second time, right? With a second type task, maybe a bit more challenging. So this time they're actually going to do the task from the course book, a listen and number, all right? So what I would do as a pre-task here, I would think about maybe modeling this activity on the board, so they understand what they have to do. So I might do a listen and number activity about me, the teacher. So my name is John, James, or Jane, and they have to sort of listen and number, or listen and tick, for example. Okay, just sort of model the activity first. All right. Or I might have John is, and then I have teacher, police officer, doctor, and then they have to sort of number it as I say it. But maybe do a model on the board first, okay, as a pre-task. Or maybe a prediction task where they would look and maybe guess the order first, and then they will listen and see if they were correct or not. Okay, could be a little sort of a fun challenge. Okay. And then obviously with the task, they would listen and then number it there in their course book, maybe check in pairs. Okay. And again, yeah, think about getting some feedback. If you're teaching online, to get feedback, to understand, as they're listening to the audio, as they're listening and numbering, maybe pause after each time they hear one job and they number, and then just get them to maybe give a thumbs up, thumbs down if they think they got it, okay? Just to break it up, slow it down, just to make sure that they're getting it okay, all right? So that's a little thumbs up after each job, yeah. Maybe with face-to-face classroom, once you finish the activity, ask them to close their eyes, and then they've got to hold up 3 fingers if they think they did really well, 2 fingers if they did, yeah, okay, 1 finger if so-so, okay? Give like a sort of a blind kind of self feedback, okay?
And those feedback techniques you can definitely do online as well. I'm just thinking about that. They're easy enough to just hold it up to your camera.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Online, you could have like a little sort of green and a red card that they could prepare at home. It's like green saying, I'm good, red, or orange even for, not sure, red, no, I completely missed that, okay? At least you know you can then maybe go back and play it again with maybe some support. Okay.
Personalize their feedback. That's nice.
Yeah, but I think that feedback is so important, isn't it? Before moving on.
Yeah, and just
I think
going
the
back.
feedback. Sorry, Dale. Go on.
No, go on. Sorry, go on. You go.
No, I was just going to say the feedback also comes through the teacher's role as the facilitator and observing students as well, isn't it? It's a bit more difficult online, isn't it? That's why we need to have some kind of, visual feedback as well if you're teaching online, but having that skill of observing, facilitating, picking up on who's doing well, who hasn't quite got it is important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was just going to say about the prediction activity with any kind of vocabulary sets like this. This activity itself lends itself to this kind of activity where you've got the teacher and matched with the blackboard, for example, and the cleaner and the mop and bucket. You could do that without the picture. You could just dictate, for example, some items. So you could, dictate a desk, a briefcase, and a computer. They write these down, and then they have to try and come up with jobs that are related to those items, as well as some prediction. And then you can show it on the screen. Obviously, briefcase and desk might be a bit above this level, but you get the idea.
Yeah, exactly. I think in an online class as well, these kind of course books are pretty fancy these days, and they come with digital student books, right? So all the audio, video is integrated, so you can play that audio, or you can play those vocab videos on the online platform as well. And I would do it with them. So as online, for example, if you're doing it, I would play the audio, and I think I would maybe sort of pause after each job is said, just get a little bit of time. They can number it, give a little bit of feedback in the chat box. What do you think was number 2? Okay, which one was number 2, for example, and just sort of slow it down, check that everyone's okay, and then you can sort of speed up a little bit as well. Okay,
and pick on different people to answer the questions, and so that they don't get too distracted and they are listening to you all the time.
Yeah. All right. And then 4th tip today would be to grade the task, not the text. So you keep the same audio text, but you can gradually make the tasks a little bit more tricky as they become more confident, or as they hear the text maybe the 2nd or 3rd time. So the 3rd time we use this audio, a pre-task maybe you might push them a little bit more with language structure. So here we might teach them maybe using, we can use PowerPoint with the pictures on PowerPoint, or flashcards in the classroom, and sort of model drill, she's a doctor or he's a vet. Okay. And then the actual task, I would firstly maybe set an I can statement, an I can do type statement, Del, which often comes from the CEFR.
Yeah.
So you kind of set that at the start. So I can listen and remember the order of occupations, for example. Set that at a challenge as a starter. They would then listen to you as a teacher. You would read maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 jobs in a row, like doctor, teacher, chef, police officer, fireman, vet. And then they have to try and remember what you said in the correct order, basically.
Yeah,
jobs
nice.
in the correct order. Yeah, okay. But using that structure. And if you've got a face-to-face class, if you're lucky enough, I would use students. So bring up maybe 6, 7 students to the front of the class, if you've got a big class, and each student is a different job or occupation. And they take it in turns to go down the line and say their job. So I'm a doctor, I'm a vet, I'm a chef. And then all the other students have to remember who is who, and then try and retell to their partner who is who. So she's a doctor, he's a vet, blah, 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 kind of activity.
Yeah, that's definitely something you could do online as well, especially if you've got all the faces on the screen and they go through one at a time. They say what job they are, and then they give them a few minutes to write down the names and what jobs they are, and then bring it back to the classes again in the chat box. So here we've got, Ploy. What's her job? And everybody writes in the chat what Ploy is, and that kind of thing. She's a doctor.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
And then I would come back to that can-do statement at the start. So if at the start of the task, you said, okay, we're going to do an activity. Okay, I can listen and remember 8 jobs. Okay. And then you come back to that and then at the end and say, did you do it? Can you do it? And that kind of gives them a good sense of how well they did, and obviously a good sense of achievement as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So as I mentioned at the start, I just want to go back to that first tip about finding opportunities to integrate listening. And you might want to do that at the end of that class. To review the class, you may do a little dictation or a little beep dictation where they have to fill in the blanks, for example, to review what they did in class today. You may read a description, for example, of one of the jobs you did today. They have to listen and tell you what job they think you're talking about. But little activity like that as a way of kind of exiting the class to review the class. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. And you could even do it, even introduce some maybe critical thinking with that as well. Like everybody, okay, you've got them before they go, they have to tell you what's the most dangerous job, what's the job that's most well paid, what job do you need to go to university to do, and things like that, to get them thinking about that as well.
Nice idea. Cool. So that was kind of an example of how you can use that task cycle for a young learner activity, and lots you can exploit and adapt and bring out of those audio texts. We're going to move now on to tip number 5, and particularly with teenagers or young learners. I feel that, yes, with young learners, we are developing their skills and strategies, but sometimes it's a bit more difficult, isn't it, to tell them or talk to them about skills and strategies. You kind of do the activities and they kind of indirectly or implicitly, pick these up, don't they? But I think we can be a little bit more direct, can't we, with older students, and talk to them about strategies, reflect on them. So for example, these types of activity for teenagers, these are some of the common kind of strategies we can develop, and you can actually directly tell them what they're going to be developing in this class, and then reflect on it after the class. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Do we need to do more of these types of activities to help with those weaknesses, for example? Okay.
Yeah, and I think with teenagers, if you do tell them, it shows that you care. It shows that you're recognizing that their challenges and that you're there to help them with that as well. So I think, like you said, point out the challenges and then point out the solutions by focusing on the strategies.
Okay. And again, we're going to focus heavy here more on the process, more on them reflecting on their strengths and weaknesses, not necessarily the product, right? The end answers. If their process is good and they get a good end product and answer the questions correctly, then brilliant. But I think our first important point is the process. So I'm going to be using some examples from Gateway to the World new teenage course, and they have these lovely listening exam tips where they put forward tips for kind of developing these kind of strategies that they need to do well in the exam. So here, the exam activity type is multiple choice activities, and the advice is for this kind of activity, look at the pictures and predict the topic or words or ideas that are going to come up. So for example, here with those photos, you can see which photo did the girl find most interesting. So looking at those pictures, Dale, A, B, and C, what words do you think might come up, or what topics might come up that they could maybe predict and listen for? What do you think in A? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cave, isn't it?
Good enough. Okay, maybe like cave, for example. B, you might listen
by the
for
beach.
yeah, it could be beach, could be cliff.
Cliffs, mountains, White Cliffs
Yeah.
of Dover,
Yeah,
and then an island for sea, a desert
yeah,
island, palm
exactly.
trees. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so they could do that. They could maybe list down maybe 2 or 3 words which they think or they're going to listen for. And at the end of the activity, they come back and you ask them, yeah, how good was your process? Did you predict the correct words? Yes or no? What would you do differently next time? Or what words would you have chosen if you did this activity again, to get them reflecting a bit more? And I thought about maybe a reflective journal for strategies, so to get them just to write down, to help them reflect on their strengths and weaknesses for each of those strategy areas, for example, may help
Definitely.
bring out those things. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're saying. You need to let the learners know what strategies they're actually developing. And like you said, in those exam tip boxes, they are there written. But if they don't know the strategies, how do they know how to then develop those strategies? So you have to go right back to that. It's very interesting.
Okay. So yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left. So we're going to have a look then. Remember that task cycle we went through for young learners? We're going to do the same for teenagers with a few different types of activity, which could be used for upper primary or teenagers or young adults. So here we have a listening. Again, I take this one from Gateway to the World. And what's good about this listening text is it will develop multiple strategies, actually, or help you to teach multiple strategies through one audio text, which is great. So here they have a photo. So in terms of a lead-in, we could do a little sort of what can you see, a little brainstorm, what you can see, a little think, pair, share, where they think for 30 seconds. They find a partner and share their ideas about what they can see. You could get them to answer kind of who, what, where, why questions. So who are they? What are they doing? Where are they? Why are they doing that? Maybe brainstorm in their groups, breakout rooms if you're teaching online, for example. These kind of activities. I know you like your VTRs, your visible thinking routines, Dale, which could work there too.
Yeah, think, pair, share is a visible thinking routine, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. What's the other visible thinking routine? It's a see, think, wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
So what can you see in the photo? What do you think is happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then what do you wonder? I wonder why she has a pink bag. I wonder why, they're there, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's a good, nice activity.
Yeah.
All right. And there's a pre-task. So this one actually comes in the book. Can you see 1B? They write a list of questions that you would like to ask about the activity they're doing in the picture. So maybe in pairs, groups, the students write a list of questions, which is quite a nice activity. Gives them more ownership, doesn't it, of the activity. You may need some support for this one. So you may want to, for example, give them some questions, but rearrange the words in the question, and then they rearrange the words to make the questions.
Yeah, that's a nice
struggling.
way.
Yeah.
Nice way to start the week.
Yeah. But you might want to do 2 or 3 questions like that, where they rearrange the words, and then maybe 2 or 3 questions they come up with themselves. But just give them a little bit of support, get them going a little bit.
And again, easy to do in a breakout room as well if you're teaching online.
Yeah, exactly. And then the task itself, they would actually listen, and then you can see the activity here. You actually listen and check if your questions were answered or not, which is a nice one. So they see which questions were answered, which ones were not. That's a really lovely little listening task, that one. Okay.
Yeah, it goes deep, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there, encourage them, or maybe as a teacher, to maybe you come up with a few easy ones that you're sure they'll get right, and then a few more challenging ones maybe as well. Okay, I think maybe not too challenging at this point. All right. And again, get some feedback. Ask them how well they did, how well they predicted, maybe what came up. Get some feedback. Get the conversation going with your students. In terms of the round 2 for the task, this one is a true or false, classic kind of activity. So here they would, as a pre-task, they would read the sentences, and it's kind of a prediction task where they read and underline what key words they think they're going to need in those sentences or statements that they're going to need to answer the question. Okay, so what about number 1? What do you think might be a key word to listen for to find the right information in the audio? What do you think? It could be 1 or 2 type of words, but I was thinking.
Yeah, I'd go with what Chartips just said with plugging. I think
Could
name.
be plugging. It may be
Yeah.
name. They may say,
Yeah.
they may be talking about name, mightn't they? Name might come up, for example.
Yeah.
But anyway, just try it. They go through, underline maybe 1 or 2 key words per statement, and then they do a true or false. Again, you might want to do an example first with the students to make sure they get it. But very important here, feedback. And did your keyword strategy work? What words did you underline, or what words would have been more useful to listen for, so they can see what words they didn't get, what mistakes they made, so they can maybe address that and give them experience, which is so important, I think.
Yeah, and this would be good for obviously it's for secondary students here, but if you're teaching adults, university students, this is going to be ideal for that as well. Something a bit a bit more challenging for them.
Okay, so that was our second round, and then the final round. So here they're going to listen for more detail, right? The strategy here is listening for more detail or specific information. So there are kind of 5 key areas covered in the listening, and they, as a pre-task, they could brainstorm in groups first, or maybe use a graphic organizer with those 5 key areas. And they could maybe jot down a few things, or 1 or 2 things for each of those 5 areas that they remember. And then they would then listen and check their ideas, and then add more details to their brainstorm or their mind map or their graphic organizer. Okay. As an extension, they could also listen to other groups. They could listen to other groups, what ideas they had, or what details they had, and then add those details to their own brainstorm or mind map or graphic organizer. All right. And again, lots of feedback here with your teens or young adults. How did you do? What did you miss? What did you find difficult? And they could even discuss that in groups first before sharing, and share their strengths and weaknesses, I think, is a good idea, I think, with the teens and young learners. All right.
Very nice.
Nearly there. And again, so that was our task cycle that we looked through. Again, you don't have to use it in this order. You may have your own ideas, but if it's something that you like and want to try, then give it a go. And it helps you really exploit an audio text, I think get the most out of it, but also support them and also encourage that all important feedback. All right. And just a little 2 final tips to finish off before we have a Q&A. Yeah, we talked about making listening active. So here is a kind of a critical thinking, in your opinion type task. After they do the audio, they have to give their opinion. And I think to make that discussion or opinion giving more active, I think I would encourage students to listen to other students. And as they're listening, maybe to jot down 1 or 2 questions that you want to ask them at the end or after they finish giving their opinion. I think that will help them to maybe process and be a little bit more active with their listening there.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, and then just to finish off, 2 little creative ideas, other creative listening ideas that you might want to use as well, maybe for your slightly higher level learners, maybe your teenagers, young adults. So this one is when you can really utilize the listening or the audio scripts, which often you'll get, won't you, in the teacher's book, or that you can print out for students. So here they could actually read through the script in groups or pairs, and it could be an integrated skill task, a little bit of reading, they read through, and in their groups they can write down maybe some questions, and then they can swap those questions with other groups, and then they listen and try and answer those questions.
Yeah.
So again, it's more involving, isn't it? They're being
personalizing, isn't it? You're kind of personalizing. Often when we think of personalizing, we think of it as being a task at the end to sort of bring the topic into your life. But this is actually personalizing the task, which I think is equally as motivating and as engaging. Nice.
Yeah. Cool. All right. It's a nice little task there to finish. So 8 little tips we covered today. Hope those were useful for you, and some useful activities as well. We'll be sharing the video of this session as well, if you want to go back and review any of those tips. Okay. As always, we really appreciate your feedback on these sessions, and do please give us some feedback on today's session. We'll paste a link to a survey to give us some feedback, or you can scan that QR code. Again, we'll show you that again at the end after we've done a bit of Q&A. So shall we move on? I'm sure we've got a few questions about today's content. Should we invite Super back for a bit of a Q&A with our teachers? Hey, Super.
Hi. Thanks, John, for your informative session about teaching listening. I think it is very down to earth, very like well designed step-by-step teaching lesson plans about listening. Sometimes we don't really plan listening in such a detailed way, but you give us a very good example and framework of how to follow that mind map and how to carry out all these listening activities. And we do have the first question from teacher Trong. Maybe my pronunciation is not right. Forgive me for that. So teacher Trong asked, when my adult students have to deal with listening tasks, they tend to give up the audio. They tend to give up if the audio is too long, or if the audio is too difficult, or if the voice is not appealing. Yeah. So any more exciting activities you recommend, except like replaying the audio in a smaller part or giving them prompts? So any other activities more exciting, more appealing to adult learners?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't dismiss playing the audio in smaller parts. You can play it in smaller parts, but then each part you can maybe change up the type of activity that you do. For example, I sometimes do like a live tape recorder. Sounds very old-fashioned, but it's called like a live tape recorder. And if you've got face-to-face classes, for example, they get to control it. So for example, if they get lost, they can choose to kind of stop or pause it and then kind of replay it. So I gave them little cards with like stop, pause and play button, which they can hold up at any time if they get lost, right? The student holds up pause, you've got to pause it, and then maybe rewind it a little bit, for example, and go back and listen. But I think going back to the point with long text as well, it's a case like I've been talking about, is grading the task, isn't it, as well? If the task is too difficult, grade that, I think, first before grading or trying to shorten the text itself.
Yeah, we need to make the listening task like maybe right above the student's level to give them a little bit challenging, but not too difficult to achieve. Any ideas from Dell maybe?
Yeah, I would just second what John's just been saying, and I think I certainly wouldn't shy away from pausing the audio as well and engaging with it as you go through. That would be fine for me. And I would just I think maybe trying to also think about what John's talked about with the strategies. So if a student's focusing on the process more than the product, that might be a bit more interesting for them as well. And that might sort of change their views when it comes to listening, so that they're not just listening for the answers, they're actually practicing their skills. So that's a focus from you, explaining exactly what the task is about.
Good idea. I might just mention this this activity as well for the teacher who asked that question, and she did ask for another activity. So this one, it's called a word wheel. You can do it in a wheel, in a big circle, but I prefer to do it in a line, a linear line. But you pick out all maybe key words from a long text. You can dictate them to the students, and they write them down. Very important, write them down the center of their page or a piece of paper. The center, not the left side, not the right side, the center. And then you play the audio and they listen for these key words and try and add in words and phrases that come before and come after these words. And then once you've finished with a partner or groups, they then try and reconstruct the text based on what they've got, which is a nice activity, I think. And it's a good one for long, difficult academic texts, that one.
Good for collocation, isn't it? If you're pulling out
collocation,
words that go together,
But make sure you write them down the center of the page. If you do it on the left, there's no space to write what comes before these words, right? So do it down the center,
Yeah, this one sounds like a very good idea. Yeah, very good activity to deal with long tests. And that's the answer for teacher Trong. And also we have got another question from teacher Thai. I'm sorry about my pronunciation. So teacher Thai is asking about the primary students. They don't really have like a chance to practice listening. How can I design easy and like interesting listening activities for them? Maybe any recommendations of resources or activity design, maybe websites or platforms?
And that's from T, THI. In Vietnam, that's pronounced T.
Oh, sorry,
Coffee, tea, primary school didn't have a chance to practice. My students in primary school don't have a chance to practice listening. How can I design easy and interesting activity? Well, hopefully I've shown you a few today. But I would think about that task cycle that we did today, and just try and think of maybe 2 or 3 activities you can use with the same text. Make it as active as you can, like I tried to show you. Make it physical, as Dale mentioned, using actions, using TPR. Bring students up, give them instructions to follow, maybe, or give them instructions to do certain things in the classroom. That will really help their listening. Chinese whisper type games. Actually, I'm not sure you can say that anymore. Like a whispering game.
Telephone.
Telephone game where you maybe line up teams of students, right, in lines facing the board. The one at the end of each line comes to you and you whisper a word or a sentence, and then they whisper down the line, and the last student will run up and maybe write that sentence on the board, for example, or slap the correct picture on the board. Not great for an online teacher, sorry, that one, but it's good for face-to-face teaching.
I was wondering why the activity is called Chinese whisper. Anything related to Chinese, or Chinese people like to do whispering?
I think there is some actually it's not more negative connotation, unfortunately, and actually it's not politically correct, I think, to say that anymore. So we have to say whispers or telephone actually now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. But the game itself is really interesting. Yeah. It always like works out really funny results at the end when they whisper to each other. So yeah, that's a very good game for listening, of course. And also we have teacher asking about gateway to the world. I think teacher Rose asked about what's the difference between gateway to the world and the gateway. Yeah. Any updates from you two?
Where's that one?
Yep.
That one
Yep.
comes in the chat box. Yeah, I noted it down earlier. Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll get into the world as it's got some fantastic new spreads. They got these great learners, great thinkers, great learners section. They've got, which include lots of sustainable development goals. It includes sort of videos in there as well, which is a brilliant addition to the course.
It's got the visible thinking routines that are also linked to that as well. Social emotional learning deals with that, as well as all the skills and the 4 skills that it's so strong with as well, and the vocab and grammar development.
Yeah, it's cracking. It's a cracking new course, and actually super. There are some. The author of Gateway has some great sessions coming up now for our teachers as well, I think. Yeah,
so Gateway to the World is a new updated version of Gateway, and also relating to the topic today, the listening texts and the reading texts are like 100% updated from the previous version to make sure we can engage the teenager students nowadays, to attract and to grab their attention, to make sure all the texts are relevant and like appealing to this age group. So that's also one of the differences.
Yeah.
Have we got time? Sorry, Sip, I think you missed the question in the chat, which I thought was really interesting, from Lucille. How do you motivate students to be more critical with their feedback? Whenever I ask students what they struggled with, they always say nothing. But when one looks at their work, one can see that they had a problem. It's a good question, John. You mentioned that feedback all the way through. So how would you achieve that?
Sorry, mate. Was that a question?
Yeah. How would you get students?
Sorry, I was checking the chat box. Go on, say again.
All right. So how do you motivate students to be more critical with their feedback? So the teachers say when they ask them what their problems are, they say they don't have any problems, but the teacher can clearly see that they do have problems.
Hopefully the activity, let me just go back. The activity I showed, where was it? Something like this, for example, or even better, where's this one, right? I think because they underline the key words and then they do the activity, they can actually visibly clearly see what they got wrong, right? And what they got right and how well they got their strategy right. So I think by making it visible like that, and also building in that culture of feedback, right? And getting things wrong and discussing it and show them that they can develop from their weaknesses is a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, I think what you said as well about the can-do statements, that's a nice way of giving the teacher feedback without saying that they have a problem. They can just decide not to actually say that they can do it, and that tells you as a teacher. It's all about learner training, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think now with a lot of online teaching still as well, often listening activities might be done independently by students as well, right? They might listen at home, for example, in their own time, for example. So in that case, it's really important as well, isn't it, to help them with these kind of strategies for when they are sort of listening independently.
Definitely.
Yes. So I think that's all for today's questions. Yeah, thank you very much, teachers, for submitting a lot of brilliant questions. And thank you, John Dell, for giving us the answers as well. So I would like to share this QR code again for you to submit some of your feedback. We really care about your evaluation, your feedback to help us improve in our future trainings. So do take a minute to scan this QR code or click the link in the chat box. I think it's working now, right? Some teachers said it's not opening, but I tried again and it's working. So thank you very much for the feedback. Yes, and I have some final news for teachers who want to develop yourself, especially for teachers who are teaching teenagers, who are maybe interested in Gateway to the World, Gateway series. We are going to launch a campaign with the author of Gateway to the World, Dave Spencer, and we have an event called Teach with Dave. It's been with us for a few years, and this year we're going to provide you with a tailor-made professional development space for teachers of teenagers to develop yourself. There will be a lot of teaching, like webinars, class webinars, focusing on classroom challenges, especially with teaching teenagers, and provided with some free extra resources that you can use and when you teach your teenager students. And after finishing all these webinars, like watching, you're able to do the quizzes and collect a certificate as an evidence of learning. So please go to the website macmillanenglish.com/teachwithdave. You are able to check out this event. So we're going to support you and provide you with a lot of training and professional development tips and resources there. And also, together with this event, we are also going to have a webinar with Dave Spencer. He's going to give us a webinar on exams and teenagers facing the facts on April the 26th of 2020. So it's coming in a month. So get registered on the same website, and you will be able to listen to Dave talking about how to turn the negatives of exams into positives. So this is, I think, something teachers care a lot about, right, in the classroom. And we will also have a Q&A session with Dave Spencer. If you have any questions about Gateway to the World or teaching teenagers, you will have an opportunity to talk to Dave. And there is going to be an in-depth deep dive session to introducing Gateway to the World after that as well. So stay tuned and get registered on macmillanenglish.com/teachwithdave. Okay. And also, I would like to remind you to follow us on the social channel media. We will be launching more events and webinars and provide you more support and sharing more teaching tips on these channels. And if you do have any questions about the course books mentioned in today's session, or if you have any questions relating to certificates or recording, watching, you can contact us on these channels or using the email address here on this page. Okay, and also, finally, but lastly, I'm going to mention the 2022 Professional Development Program again. You will be reminded on the social channel pages, and we are going to launch a lot of events coming very soon. So stay tuned, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Okay, so John, Dell, some final words to the teachers?
Well, thank you very much for coming. Yeah, thanks for attending, and thanks for your participation, being active listeners.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for your participation on Tuesday and today, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Yes. So have a good night. Bye-bye.
See you.
Take care,
Cheers,
everyone.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.